U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose new tariffs on several European countries over their opposition to his bid to acquire Greenland has ignited a major transatlantic political and economic crisis, drawing fierce rebukes from European Union leaders and raising the specter of a broader trade confrontation between NATO allies. The controversy began when President Trump announced that, starting February 1st, his administration would levy a 10% tariff on imports from a group of European nations that have resisted U.S. pressure over Greenland, including Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Finland, the United Kingdom, and Norway. Trump tied the imposition of these new tariffs directly to his long-standing desire to see Greenland come under U.S. control, warning that the rate would jump to 25% by June 1st if no deal over the Arctic territory were reached. According to Trump's post on social media, the tariffs would remain in place until such time as a deal is reached for complete and total purchase of Greenland, signaling a dramatic escalation in U.S. foreign policy. What made the announcement extraordinary was not merely the tariff level, but the president's coupling of trade policy with territorial ambitions, effectively using economic coercion as leverage in a diplomatic dispute. Greenland, a massive island with strategic military value in the Arctic, has long been the subject of geopolitical interest, but Denmark, which governs the territory, and Greenlandic leaders have repeatedly insisted that the land is not for sale and must remain under its current political arrangement. European leaders were quick to respond with united condemnation. The foreign ministers and prime ministers of the affected countries issued a sharply worded joint statement, dismissing the U.S. tariff move as blatant blackmail and warning that such tactics threaten to undermine the foundations of transatlantic cooperation. Tariff threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral, the leaders declared, asserting that they were committed to defending sovereignty and mutual respect rather than succumbing to pressure. The European Union, which includes 6 of the countries targeted by the new U.S. duties, held emergency meetings among ambassadors and senior officials in Brussels to coordinate a collective response. At the heart of those discussions was whether to implement retaliatory measures, and if so, how forceful they should be. One option under consideration was to reimpose a vast package of tariffs on U.S. goods, originally drafted in response to earlier trade tensions, but suspended after a tentative EU.S. trade deal the previous summer. That plan could see punitive levies on a wide range of products, including cars, foodstuffs, industrial goods, and other categories, a move that would directly hit American exporters. Perhaps even more consequential was the talk inside EU corridors of deploying Europe's anti-coercion instrument, a powerful economic tool, sometimes referred to in political and media circles as a trade bazooka. This instrument, adopted in recent years but never invoked, empowers the European Union to take swift and sweeping countermeasures against third countries that use economic pressure to advance political or strategic goals. Under its provisions, the EU could restrict foreign companies' access to European public procurement contracts, block investment and banking activities, even clamp down on digital services or intellectual property from offending nations. In many ways, it represents one of Brussels' most formidable arsenals in trade defense. Hence the nickname that suggests a big, explosive response option. France's president played a prominent role in pushing for consideration of the anti-coercion instrument, asserting that Europe cannot allow itself to be bullied or economically manipulated. There were also discussions about cashing in the already drafted tariff package against roughly 93 billion euros worth of American imports, a step that would amount to a highly visible economic counterpunch in any trade dispute. But EU diplomats acknowledged that there was reluctance in some capitals to escalate immediately to the most dramatic tools. Many officials emphasized the importance of continuing dialogue with Washington, rather than allowing the dispute to blossom into a full-blown trade war. Still, the unity of European leaders in rejecting Trump's gambit was clear. Nations historically seen as more cautious about confrontation with the United States, including traditionally pro-Atlantic countries, joined in denouncing the tariff threats. They insisted that decisions over Greenland's future should be made by Denmark and its people, free from economic coercion or external pressure. Domestically, the row has also triggered debate within the U.S., where some lawmakers and commentators question the wisdom and legality of using tariff policy to try to force a sovereign nation into territorial concessions. There are concerns that such tactics, if permitted to set a precedent, could damage broader U.S. strategic interests and weaken alliances that have been foundational to global security for decades. Critics argue that trade policy should be governed by rules and negotiations, not unilateral ultimatums tied to geopolitical goals. In Europe, condemnation went beyond government corridors. Protests erupted in cities across Denmark and Greenland, with demonstrators waving national flags and chanting slogans in defense of self-determination and national dignity. The image of thousands on the streets in Arctic and urban centers alike underscored how deeply the dispute had captured public attention and sentiment. Analysts also warned that the dispute could have long-lasting implications beyond the immediate tariff clash. The transatlantic rift over Greenland has injected uncertainty into long-standing trade negotiations and could delay or even derail broader agreements aimed at reducing tariffs or enhancing economic cooperation between the United States and the European Union. Some European officials suggested that work on a joint trade framework could be suspended while the current crisis remains unresolved, potentially stalling efforts to deepen economic ties. Broader geopolitical ramifications have also been cited. Critics of the tariff threat warn that tension between the United States and key European partners plays into the hands of geopolitical rivals, who may seek to exploit fractures within the Western alliance. In a world facing multiple security challenges, from ongoing conflicts in Eastern Europe to strategic competition in Asia, a fracturing of transatlantic unity on trade and defense fronts could carry significant consequences. Despite strong rhetoric on both sides, there remain voices advocating for diplomacy and negotiated solutions. Some European diplomats stress that imposing punitive measures should be a last resort and that channels of communication with Washington should remain open. They argue that sustained engagement, rather than immediate reciprocal punishment, could preserve the long-term stability of transatlantic relations. As the deadline for the U.S. tariffs draws closer and EU leaders prepare to meet again, the dispute over Greenland and trade policy stands at a critical inflection point, with economic measures hanging in the balance and geopolitical tensions heightening.